reporters, well, guess what? Somehow, some way, Stephanie White looks worse than she did just 2 nights ago when she lost her mind on everybody and told everybody to go to hell.
The WNBA just embarrassed itself again. And this time, it's not a bad call or a controversial foul that has the sports world losing its mind. It's a coach, a player, and an entire league office that appears completely incapable of acknowledging what millions of people watched happen in real time on a professional basketball court. Right now, fans are replaying the clip frame by frame. Media personalities are raising alarms, and Stephanie White, who already scorched her own credibility 2 nights ago with a defense that left everyone speechless, somehow found a way to look even worse without saying a single additional word in public. The full story of what happened, who defended it, who got punished, and who absolutely did not is more revealing than anything the WNBA's PR department would ever want you to examine this closely. We are breaking all of it down right now, and by the end, you'll understand exactly why this league keeps finding itself in these situations.
One of the things about Nay is that she's going to play her butt off, man. She's going to compete. Nobody's going to go walking in for a layup. And so I don't oppose the hard foul, but I also don't think that she intentionally went for the net.
2 nights ago, Stephanie White already had the sports world shaking its head. Her post-game comments defending Dijonai Carrington over her own player Sophie Cunningham were the kind of coaching decision that makes you question someone's professional judgment at a fundamental level. She threw the cape on for Carrington, a player who had just done something that any reasonable observer could identify as dangerous and deliberate, while her own player, Cunningham, was left standing without institutional support from the one person in that organization whose job it is to provide it. That alone was enough to generate significant backlash. That alone should have been the low point. It was not the low point.
Adam Silver needs to step in and suspend Edward Scissorhands for the rest of the year. Of course he won't. Last night, Dijonai.
And then she put both hands up right after. That's Dijonai's.
Yeah, I gouged another white girl. Yeah, I gouged another white girl while wearing your Sophie Cunningham wig.
Because what has happened since is somehow worse. White didn't hold a press conference to clarify her position. She didn't walk anything back. She didn't issue a statement acknowledging the seriousness of what occurred on that court. Instead, through the combination of her silence and the clips circulating from that original defense, she has allowed her position to harden into something that reads as full institutional endorsement of dangerous play. In the absence of correction, her original comments stand as the official coaching staff's take, and that take is that Dijonai Carrington was simply being competitive, going for the ball, playing her brand of physical basketball. The sports world is not buying it. And the reason the sports world is not buying it is sitting in a video that anyone with a smartphone can watch on a loop until the truth becomes undeniable. When you watch that clip, really watch it, without the benefit of a coach's pre-framed narrative, the going for the ball explanation doesn't just fall short.
All the while, you're getting fans kicked out. This damn league couldn't pay fans to come in the arena to actually watch you nincompoops.
It collapses entirely. And Stephanie White, whether she intended it or not, has now attached her professional credibility to an argument that the footage itself refutes in real time. She looked bad on night 1. She looks worse today. And the most damning part? She didn't even have to say anything new for the situation to deteriorate. The clip did the work for her. Let's be precise about what actually happened, because precision matters when the defense being offered is this thin. The play in question is not a contested rebound where fingers accidentally make contact. It is not a defensive scramble where the proximity of bodies creates an unavoidable collision. When you watch the footage frame by frame, and at this point millions of people have done exactly that, what you see is a hand moving in a direction that has nothing to do with where the basketball is.
Fan said something derogatory about my hair. Look at her. Ghetto, in the ghetto. Got to be more careful in the ghetto. Get that fan out. Get that fan out of here. The softest sport imaginable.
The ball is not in the vicinity of the face. The ball is not the object being targeted. The eyes are. This is not a marginal read. This is not a situation where reasonable people examining the same footage arrive at genuinely different conclusions. The hand goes toward the face. The contact happens. The player on the receiving end reacts the way any human being reacts when something makes contact with their eye, and the referees, who by multiple accounts were in a direct sightline to the play, made the call that they made, which is to say they managed the situation in a way that has since drawn its own significant scrutiny. Now layer in the context that makes this incident impossible to dismiss as an isolated moment of competitive intensity. This is not the first time Dijonai Carrington has been at the center of this conversation. 2 years ago, Caitlin Clark was on the receiving end of a remarkably similar situation involving Carrington. 2 years, 2 games, 2 years apart, and the pattern is sitting right there in the public record for anyone willing to look at it honestly. When something happens once, it can be framed as an accident, as the chaos of competitive play, as an unfortunate collision of bodies moving at high speed. When it happens again, to a different player, in a similarly deliberate-looking fashion, the accident framing becomes very difficult to sustain. And then there are the fingernails. We will address those in full shortly because they deserve their own conversation. But in the immediate context of breaking down what happened on that court, the presence of long, artificial nails during a play that involves a hand moving toward another player's face is not a detail that can be minimized. The physical danger that those nails represent in that specific scenario is not hypothetical. It is right there in the footage, and it raises questions about basic player safety standards that the league appears to have no interest in answering. At some point, a pattern stops being a coincidence and starts being a profile. The Caitlin Clark incident 2 years ago put Carrington's name in a conversation it probably didn't need to be in. That play was controversial. It was debated. People on one side said physical, competitive basketball. People on the other side said something more deliberate was happening. The league processed it the way the league processes most things it finds uncomfortable, quietly, without the kind of decisive action that would signal a clear standard being enforced. And life moved on. But here's the thing about patterns in professional sports. They compound. Every time a player operates at the edge of what's acceptable without facing meaningful consequences, the edge shifts slightly. The behavior that drew scrutiny last season becomes the baseline for this season. The play that almost crossed a line before is now the opening bid for what comes next. This is not a controversial observation about human behavior. It is a well-documented dynamic in every competitive environment where enforcement is inconsistent. What we are now looking at with Dijonai Carrington is a body of work, not a moment. A body of work that includes multiple incidents, multiple players on the receiving end, and a consistent institutional response that has ranged from insufficient to actively defensive. When you place the Caitlin Clark incident next to what just happened 2 games ago, you are no longer looking at a player who occasionally plays rough. You are looking at a player whose physical approach has resulted in documented harm to other players' faces and eyes on more than one occasion, with those long artificial nails present in both situations, and with the league's protective infrastructure nowhere to be found in the aftermath. The comparisons being drawn to the most physically notorious players in NBA history, names like Rick Mahorn, Dennis Rodman, Anthony Mason, are meant to evoke the archetype of the intentionally physical, boundary-pushing enforcer. Those players were legitimately feared. They were also, it should be noted, subject to consequences when the league determined that their physical style had crossed from competitive into dangerous. The difference being applied here is not subtle. It is stark, and it is producing a very specific conclusion in the minds of fans and observers who have been watching this situation develop over multiple seasons. The question is no longer whether Carrington plays dirty. The footage has answered that question for most people who are willing to watch it honestly. The question is why the answer hasn't produced a different institutional response. And that question leads directly to the league office. While all of this was happening on the court, while a player was on the receiving end of contact that sent the entire sports internet into an uproar, something else was happening in the stands that manages to make the overall picture even more bewildering. A fan was ejected. Not a fan who rushed the court. Not a fan who threw something. Not a fan who made a physical threat or created a genuine safety situation. A fan who said something critical. A fan who, by all available accounts, was doing what fans have done in professional sports arenas for as long as professional sports have existed, getting on a player, talking trash from courtside, making their presence known in the vocal, antagonistic way that is considered a fundamental feature of the live sports experience rather than a bug to be corrected. That fan was removed from the building. Meanwhile, on the court, the player who has now been at the center of multiple eye-related incidents in professional play continued her evening without interruption. Let's hold those two facts next to each other for a moment, because the contrast they produce is genuinely stunning. A paying customer, someone who purchased a ticket to attend a professional sporting event, was escorted out of the arena because a player's feelings were hurt by heckling. And a player with a documented pattern of dangerous physical play kept her spot in the rotation without so much as a meaningful pause in the league's response. This is the double standard that is drawing the most visceral reaction from observers, and justifiably so. The WNBA has spent years and significant resources trying to build a broader fan base. The Caitlin Clark era represented a genuine breakthrough in that effort. Attendance numbers climbed. New viewers who had never engaged with women's basketball before started showing up to games and tuning into broadcasts. The live event experience became a genuine draw in a way it hadn't been for the previous 2 decades of the league's existence. And now, in a league where filling arenas has historically been a challenge, the response to a fan heckling from courtside is to remove them from the building. The message being sent, whether the league intends it or not, is that player comfort takes priority over fan engagement. That the experience of certain players on the court matters more than the experience of the paying customers in the seats. That the very behavior fans have brought to professional sporting events for generations is suddenly a violation of conduct standards that apparently don't extend to what's happening on the court during live play. It is a policy that would be remarkable in any professional sports context. In a league that is actively trying to grow its audience, it borders on institutional self-sabotage. This is the conversation that the league seems determined to avoid having, and the avoidance itself has become part of the problem. In virtually every professional contact sport, there are equipment and appearance standards that exist for one reason: player safety. Basketball, at every level from organized youth leagues through the professional ranks, has standards about jewelry, about rings, about anything on a player's body that could pose a physical risk to themselves or the players around them. These standards exist because the sport involves constant physical contact, bodies moving at high speed in close proximity, hands reaching for a shared ball in contested situations. The risk of injury from uncontrolled physical elements is not theoretical. It is built into the fabric of the game. Long, artificial fingernails represent exactly this kind of risk, and the evidence for that claim is no longer abstract. It is documented in video footage, in the faces of players who have been on the receiving end of contact, that those nails made significantly more dangerous than it would otherwise have been. A hand making contact with a face during a basketball play is one thing. A hand with inch-long artificial nails making contact with a player's eye is something categorically different, and the difference is not minor. So why is this still happening? Why are players taking the court in a professional league with fingernails that any reasonable safety assessment would flag as a hazard? The answer, as best as anyone outside the league office can determine, is that no one in a position of authority has been willing to make the call. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's tenure has been characterized by a consistent pattern of avoiding the difficult decisions, the ones that require a standard to be stated clearly, enforced consistently, and defended publicly when challenged. This is one of those decisions. It is not complicated. It does not require extensive policy development or league-wide restructuring. It requires someone in the commissioner's office to say, clearly, that certain physical elements present an unacceptable safety risk to players and will not be permitted on a professional basketball court. That statement has not been made, which means the next incident involving those fingernails and another player's face is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. And when it happens, the league will face the same question it is facing right now. Why did you know this was a problem and choose not to address it? Let's zoom out for a moment, because the individual incidents, as significant as each one is, are symptoms of something larger that is actively threatening everything the WNBA has built over the last 18 months. The league entered this season with more commercial momentum than it has had at any point in its history. The media rights negotiations underway represent numbers that would have been unimaginable 5 years ago. Sponsorship interest has expanded dramatically. The cultural conversation around women's basketball has reached audiences that were never previously engaged. All of that progress traces back to a single source: the explosion of interest generated by Caitlin Clark's arrival and the story that unfolded around her rookie season. The league did not build that momentum through decades of patient institutional development. It inherited it from one player's market-moving presence and then scrambled to monetize it as quickly as possible. What the league apparently failed to internalize is that maintaining that momentum requires a different kind of management than the WNBA has historically practiced. It requires clear standards. It requires visible enforcement. It requires protecting the product on the court, not just the star player, but the integrity of the competition itself, in ways that demonstrate to the new and casual audience that what they're watching is a legitimate, professionally governed athletic enterprise. Every time an incident like the current one goes inadequately addressed, a portion of that new audience recalibrates their assessment of what the WNBA actually is. The comparison to Adam Silver's management of the NBA is not flattering to Engelbert, and the sports world is making that comparison loudly right now. Silver has demonstrated, across multiple high-profile situations, a willingness to act decisively when player conduct threatens the league's reputation or the safety of the people on the court. The decisions are not always popular, they are not always perfect, but they signal that there is an authority structure in place that takes its responsibility seriously. That signal is precisely what is missing from the WNBA's current response to the situation with Dijonai Carrington, and its absence is being noticed by everyone paying attention. 0 days without a new embarrassment is a running joke in sports media right now when the WNBA comes up. That joke has a cost. Every time the punchline refreshes, the league's credibility with the broader sports audience takes another measurable hit. And the audiences that the league most needs to retain, the casual fans who came in through the Clark door and haven't yet formed deep institutional loyalty to the WNBA as a league, are the ones most likely to walk back out when the product being presented looks like this. The path forward is not complicated, even if the league's history suggests it will find a way to make it so. Dijonai Carrington needs to be suspended, not for one game as a token gesture, not with language carefully crafted to avoid acknowledging the full severity of what the footage shows. A meaningful suspension, with explicit public communication about what conduct standards were violated and what the consequences are for repeating that conduct. This is not about punishing physical play. Basketball is a contact sport. Hard fouls, aggressive defense, and physical intensity are features of the game at every level. This is about a specific, documented pattern of behavior that has resulted in contact with other players' eyes on multiple occasions, in a context where the charitable interpretation of that contact requires ignoring what the footage plainly shows. The fingernail policy needs to be addressed in the same announcement. It is not a separate issue, it is directly connected to the safety concern that these incidents have raised, and addressing one without the other leaves an obvious gap that the league's critics, who are currently quite loud and quite numerous, will immediately identify. A clear standard, stated publicly, with a specific timeline for compliance, removes the issue from future conversations and signals that the league is capable of identifying and resolving its own blind spots. Stephanie White's position becomes significantly more complicated if the league acts decisively. A head coach who publicly defended conduct that the league subsequently found worthy of meaningful discipline is in a difficult professional spot. That is not the league's problem to solve for her. She made the choice to attach her credibility to a position that the footage undermines. The consequences of that choice are hers to manage. And the fan ejection policy, Whatever internal rationale produced the decision to remove a heckling courtside fan while the on-court incidents described in this video went unpunished, needs to be examined with the kind of honest self-reflection that the league has not yet demonstrated it is capable of applying to itself. Fans heckling from the stands is not a crisis. Fans staying home is. The WNBA has spent years trying to fill arenas. Ejecting people for doing what fans have always done at professional sporting events is not a policy that serves that goal. What we are watching with Dijonai Carrington, Stephanie White, and the WNBA's response to this latest incident is not an isolated controversy. It is a pattern revealing itself in real time, a pattern of insufficient accountability, inconsistent enforcement, and institutional decision-making that consistently prioritizes the wrong things. Stephanie White walked into this situation having already damaged her credibility with a defense that the sports world rejected almost universally. She walked out of it looking worse without saying a single additional word, because the footage keeps speaking for her. Dijonai Carrington has now given the league 2 documented, publicly scrutinized incidents involving contact with other players' eyes, separated by 2 years and connected by the same dangerous element of artificial fingernails that no one in the commissioner's office has apparently found the resolve to address. And the league's response, protecting a player with a documented pattern while ejecting a fan for heckling, has produced the kind of headline that actively works against every commercial goal the WNBA is currently pursuing. The irony sits heavy. The league is in the middle of negotiating a transformational media rights deal. It is presenting itself to major networks as a product worth billions of dollars in broadcast investment, and simultaneously, it is producing a weekly news cycle that makes the case for the opposition. Every incident like this one, every inadequate response, every episode of leadership choosing comfort over clarity is a data point that erodes the argument for the league's long-term commercial viability. The sports world is watching. The new fans the Clark era brought in are watching. The networks being asked for billions are watching. The question is whether the people running this league are watching with the same honesty that everyone else is, or whether another clip drops tomorrow and we reset the embarrassment clock again. Drop your take in the comments. Would you suspend Dijonai Carrington, and does Stephanie White still have a job after this?